In the heart of Nairobi South B, tucked between the hum of matatus and the scent of fried maize from roadside vendors, lived Mangi, a quiet man with steady eyes and calloused hands. At 32, he was already marked by loss, his parents taken, by a tragic road accident near Nyahururu. From that moment on, the burden of family fell on his shoulders like a wet blanket. He became mother, father, and guardian to his younger siblings, sacrificing his own university education to ensure his sister Wanjira could finish hers. Wanjira was everything Mangi was not: tall, sharp-tongued, unapologetically bold. She walked like the dust dared not cling to her heels, and her words landed like slaps, often wrapped in silk. While Mangi preferred silence and simplicity, Wanjira demanded space and attention. He was water, she was fire. After her graduation from Kenyatta University, Wanjira found herself jobless in a city that didn't care how beautiful your certificate was. Naturally, Mangi opened his door. "You can stay here," he said, handing her the spare key with a smile. "This is your home." At the time, he lived with his wife of just 6 months, Achieng. She was soft-spoken, with a presence that could calm thunder. The kind of woman who hummed lullabies while folding laundry and whose prayers lingered in the air like incense. "Thank you, big bro," Wanjira had said, barely looking up from her phone as she dragged her suitcase into their modest 2-bedroom apartment. The first few days were uneventful. Achieng made space in the closet. Mangi made space at the dinner table. Wanjira made space in the mirror. But that fragile harmony began to buckle under the weight of difference. It began subtly. Achieng would pray before meals, her voice low but sincere. Wanjira rolled her eyes. "Does God really need 10 minutes of pre-meal consultation?" she murmured. One night. Then came the complaints about the food. "Is that fish again? This house smells like a market in Kisumu." "I can cook something else," Achieng offered. "No need," Wanjira snapped. "I'll order chips. I don't do peasant diets." Mangi's lips tightened, but he said nothing. He believed patience was the currency of peace. But peace is fragile. 3 months after Wanjira moved in, Achieng gave birth to twins, Baraka and Bilha. 2 round, rosy-cheeked babies with lungs like alarms and smiles like sunlight. For Mangi and Achieng, they were miracles. For Wanjira, they were curses in diapers. The change in her was instant. She stopped greeting Achieng altogether, kept her bedroom door shut like a vault, and sprayed half a bottle of perfume each morning to neutralize the baby smell. When the twins cried at night, she would bang her door so hard the windows rattled. "I can't believe I live in a maternity ward," she muttered one morning, sipping passion juice like it was whiskey. One Thursday afternoon, as Achieng tried to warm a bottle of milk with Baraka fussing in her arms and Bilha strapped to her back, she called out desperately, "Wanjira, please, could you just hold Baraka for a moment?" Wanjira, seated on the couch filing her nails, didn't even look up. "Me? Am I your maid now?" Achieng smiled gently. "It's just for a few minutes." Wanjira scoffed. "Then maybe you shouldn't have had twins if you can't manage them." The room fell into a silence so heavy it pressed on the walls. Achieng didn't respond. She simply turned away, tears burning behind her eyes. A week later, Wanjira stormed into the house mid-afternoon. Baraka was crawling near the door, giggling. Wanjira screamed, "This child peed on the floor! Achieng, your babies are animals!" Achieng came running, scooped him up quickly. "I'm sorry." He crawled out of the room. "I didn't see." "You never see anything," Wanjira barked. "All you do is breathe and breastfeed. Is that your full-time job?" Mangi overheard that one. That night he took his sister aside. "Wanjira, please. The babies are only 6 months. Try to be patient." She stared at him coldly. 6 months. And already I feel like I'm in a nursery school built in hell. But they're children. They cry. They don't mean harm. I don't care, she said. Build a servant's quarter, or I'll move out. The next morning, Achieng woke to silence. No clatter in the kitchen. No perfume choking the hallway. Wanjira had gone out early and stayed out all day. She returned that evening, dropped her handbag dramatically on the floor. I'm moving out next week. Found a place in Lavington. Mangi looked at her, tired. That's sudden. Freedom smells like vanilla candles, she quipped. Achieng said nothing. Just clutched the twins a little tighter that night. One day, she whispered into their ears, she will want what she now hates. The week passed slowly. Wanjira posted status updates full of mockery, leaving the baby zoo behind. Motherhood is for the desperate. Noise, milk, poop, keep it. Her followers laughed. Some applauded. Others didn't. One friend from University Mutoni replied, "May we never cry for what we once mocked." Wanjira blocked her instantly. Bad. Energy has no place in my Wi-Fi. On her last night in Mangi's house, Wanjira walked through the quiet living room, past the twins' toys on the floor, past a faint smell of baby powder in the air. She paused. Bilha, half asleep in Achieng's arms, opened one eye and whimpered softly. Wanjira stared for a moment, then walked past. Not even a goodbye. But the moment the door closed behind her, a shadow passed across Achieng's face. She will learn, she said quietly, and I only pray her lesson won't come in sorrow. The morning after Wanjira declared her plans to move out, the house felt relieved. Achieng didn't say it aloud, but her sighs were deeper, her footsteps lighter. Mangi noticed it too, though he said nothing. Silence was safer these days. Even the twins, usually fussy at dawn, were unusually calm, as if they too sensed that the thunder had passed, for now. But Wanjira hadn't left yet, and every hour she remained in that house felt like holding your breath in a room full of gas. She moved like she was allergic to everything. Baby bottles on the kitchen counter, the laundry basket full of onesies, even the twins' soft coos seemed to offend her. Why is there always a towel on the sofa? She asked one evening, tossing it across the room. It's for Bilha, Achieng replied gently. She drools sometimes. Lovely. Spit cloths in the living room. Very elite. Achieng didn't reply. She had learned that Wanjira fed on reactions. Later that same night, Bilha woke up crying. Achieng was still nursing Baraka and couldn't get up immediately. The wailing echoed down the corridor. Wanjira stormed out of her room barefoot, her silk robe flapping like a cape. For heaven's sake, can't these children sleep like normal humans? She hissed. They're babies, Wanjira, Mangi said, standing by the doorway. They cry. Yes, and dogs bark, but you don't let them bark in the living room, do you? Wanjira, he warned, voice low. Enough. She looked at him, smirked. Or what? You'll ground me? Send me to bed without supper? Mangi's jaw clenched. From the shadows of the hallway, Achieng watched silently, rocking Bilha back to sleep. By Sunday, Wanjira's boxes were stacked near the front door. Your new place must be nice, Mangi tried, offering olive branches. It is, she replied, tossing her braids over one shoulder. No crying, no diapers, just scented candles and sanity. He looked at her for a long moment. You know you're always welcome here. I know, she said. But the words carried no warmth. Achieng came out, holding Baraka on her hip. Safe journey, she said softly. Wanjira looked at her, then at the baby clinging to her mother's blouse. Baraka looked back. Then he turned his face away, burying it in Achieng's chest. Wanjira blinked. Children, she muttered. So dramatic. Then she left, without a hug, a wave, or even a backward glance. Her new apartment in Lavington was a slice of glossy modernity, white marble tiles, sheer curtains that flirted with the wind, and a rose-gold shower head that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything smelled of lemongrass and money. She posted a video tour on her stories. Freedom unlocked. Welcome to the Queen's Nest. Her followers flooded the comments. Yas! Soft life only. No baby bumps or baby dumps here. Real house, not a daycare, Wanjira basked. In the attention, she lit her vanilla candles, poured herself a glass of rosé, and sank into her velvet couch. Her playlist was set to independent women only, but beneath the curated perfection was a silence she hadn't anticipated. It was too quiet. She scrolled through WhatsApp and saw the family group. Mangi had sent a blurry photo of Bilha sitting up for the first time. Achieng had responded with heart emojis. Wanjira didn't reply. She muted the group instead. Days passed. She started a new job at a rising PR agency in Westlands. With her sharp tongue and polished wardrobe, she quickly became a client favorite. She knew how to turn sarcasm into strategy and sass into influence. Within weeks, she was handling the firm's biggest accounts. At lunch one day, a colleague, Tasha, mentioned, "My daughter lost her first tooth this morning. She insisted on writing a letter to the tooth fairy." Wanjira rolled her eyes. Imagine being scared of blood but excited about small bones falling out of your child's mouth. The table laughed, except for one woman, Asha, a new mother. "You don't have kids, do you?" Asha asked. "Nope. And I'm still mentally healthy," Wanjira shot back with a smile. Later that night, Asha sent her a private message. "You know, not all mothers are miserable. Some of us actually love the mess. Words carry weight." Wanjira typed a reply, then deleted it. She didn't change, though. Her online presence got even bolder. "Motherhood is for women with no dreams. One more baby shower invite, and I swear I'll switch off my uterus. Let's normalize not reproducing. Earth is already full." Mangi saw the posts. So did Achieng. Neither said a word. Then one Sunday afternoon, Mangi decided to visit her with the twins. He didn't tell her in advance. He just showed up, holding Baraka's hand with Bilha riding on his back. Wanjira opened the door, stunned. "This isn't a playgroup," she said flatly. "My furniture isn't child-proof." "We won't stay long," Mangi said. The twins stood quietly, staring at her marble floors and shimmering cushions. Baraka stepped forward, reaching for a velvet pillow. Wanjira snatched it away. "Do you know how much this cost? Your hands are sticky." Baraka stepped back, eyes wide. Bilha walked over, arms stretched for a hug. Wanjira froze, then took a step back. "Sorry, sweetheart. Sweat and makeup don't mix." Mangi said nothing, just picked up Bilha and turned to leave. As he reached the door, he paused. "You know," he said softly, "one day you'll be a mother too. Then you'll understand." Wanjira laughed. "Not in this lifetime, big bro." Outside, the children walked beside him in silence. Inside, Wanjira sat on her designer couch and flipped through TV channels, but her eyes weren't really watching. That night, she posted a meme. "Kids are like tiny tornadoes with worse hygiene." The likes rolled in, so did the emptiness. 2 weeks later, a knock came on her door. It was the delivery guy, flowers in hand, a note attached. "Just checking in. Hope you're okay. Mangi." She placed the flowers in a vase and stared at them for a long time. They smelled faintly like baby powder. For some reason, it made her stomach twist. Wanjira had always believed in reinvention. Now, with her own apartment, her own paycheck, and her own curated solitude, she felt like she'd finally entered the version of life she deserved. Gone were the plastic baby toys scattered on the floor, the diaper bins, the midnight cries echoing through thin walls. Here, there was only silence, artful mess, and the sweet scent of bergamot and vanilla. Her mornings began with jazz and chilled, detox water. Her nights ended with wine and carefully filtered Instagram posts. Her account was growing fast, videos of PR tips, witty commentaries, and above all, her signature flavor, baby-bashing satire. Motherhood is the leading cause of premature aging. Choose Botox, not babies. Another day? Another diaper? Couldn't be me? Your child said mama today? My Wi-Fi just hit 200 Mbps. Let's all celebrate our wins. The engagement soared. Comments like, "You speak my language." Finally, someone brave enough to say it. "Children are overrated. Give me champagne and silence." Her DMs were full of brands wanting to collaborate, perfume lines, fashion boutiques, even a luxury wine club. But for every dozen heart emojis and laughing reactions, there was always one quiet voice that unsettled her. One day, under a reel, titled, "Signs You're Not Meant to Be a Mom, hint, you enjoy silence," her old university friend Mutoni commented, "Some people mock blessings until life reminds them what it feels like to need one." Wanjira blocked her immediately. "Sentiments belong in church," she muttered. Still, the comment lingered. At work, she was thriving. Her boss, Mr. Kamau, referred to her as a storm in heels, the good kind. Clients loved her sarcasm, as much as her pitch decks. She closed 2 major accounts in 1 month and was rewarded with a team of her own. One of her team members, Asha, was soft-spoken, polite, and visibly exhausted. On a Friday morning, Asha walked in late, baby in tow. "Sorry," she whispered. "My nanny called in sick. I didn't want to miss the strategy meeting." Wanjira stared at the infant wrapped in a lemon-yellow blanket. "You brought her here?" "I'll keep her quiet, promise." During the meeting, the baby sneezed once. Wanjira paused her presentation. "Is this a boardroom or a breastfeeding seminar?" Asha flushed crimson. The baby whimpered. That afternoon, Asha sent a message. "Wanjira, I admire your success, but please don't humiliate people for being mothers. We're not all miserable. Some of us just juggle differently." Wanjira replied, with a thumbs-up emoji, then posted a photo captioned, "Peace is when your colleagues don't bring humans who leak and cry to work." The post blew up, but Asha never messaged her again. At home, the silence deepened. Her plants were thriving. Her wardrobe was pristine. Her wine rack full. Still, something gnawed at her. She'd scroll through her phone at night, pausing on videos of mothers bathing toddlers in basins, babies giggling at bubbles, fathers reading storybooks. She never liked or commented, just watched. Silently, then came the unexpected visit. She had just lit a sandalwood candle and sunk into her couch when the intercom buzzed. "Yes? It's me," said a voice she hadn't heard in weeks. "Mangi." Her heartbeat thumped, part confusion, part curiosity. He entered the apartment with Baraka and Bilha beside him. Wanjira's face tightened. "No one told me this was a daycare. Pop-up." "They wanted to see their auntie," Mangi said, lifting Baraka to sit on a stool. "They've missed you." "I can tell," she said flatly. "Baraka's fingerprints are already on my glass table." Bilha walked over shyly, holding a drawing. It was a stick figure with big hair and long earrings. "This is you," she said, smiling. Wanjira looked at the paper. It was crooked, messy, smudged with crayon. She took it with 2 fingers like it might be contagious. "Thank you," she said, forcing a smile. "Now maybe try drawing on actual art paper next time?" Bilha's smile faded. Baraka, curious as always, wandered toward the window. "Stay away from the curtains," Wanjira called out. "They're imported." Mangi's jaw tensed. "Wanjira!" "What?" she snapped. "Should I let them redecorate with peanut butter and handprints? They're just kids." "Exactly. That's why they shouldn't be in homes like this." Baraka dropped a small toy. The sound startled Wanjira. "That's enough," she said, standing. "Time to go." Mangi didn't argue. He picked up Baraka, held Bilha's hand. As they reached the door, he turned around. "You used to carry Bilha in your arms, remember?" Wanjira laughed bitterly. "That was before she leaked on my favorite blouse." She was 6 months old. And now she's 6 years from understanding boundaries. Mangi didn't reply. He looked at her long and hard, then said quietly, "One day you'll understand. Maybe not now, but one day." That night, Wanjira opened a bottle of red and stood by the window. Down below, children rode bikes in the dimming light, their laughter rising like smoke. A girl in pink fell and scraped her knee. Her mother ran over, kissed the wound, and hugged her tight. Wanjira sipped her wine slowly. She didn't cry, but her throat burned more than it should. 2 days later, a gift box arrived at her office. No name. Inside, a small framed photo of Baraka and Bilha holding hands and smiling, faces smudged with chocolate. On the back, "We still love you, Auntie." She stared at it for a long time. Didn't hang it, didn't throw it away either. She slid it into a drawer, deep, hidden, but reachable. That weekend, she posted another viral caption. "My dream home is baby-free, stress-free, and noise-proof. If your child screams in public, I automatically judge you." Mothers responded with fury. Influencers reposted it with commentary. But Wanjira didn't care. She turned off her phone, lit her candle, and sat alone in a house that no longer felt like a victory. It started with an invitation to a media launch in Westlands, a glamorous rooftop affair with string lights, sushi platters, and soft jazz curling through the air like perfume. Wanjira arrived late, as was her style, draped in a scarlet jumpsuit that made photographers turn. She wasn't there to network. She was there to be seen, and she was. Across the terrace near the mocktail bar stood a man in a navy blue suit. Clean lines, clean posture. His name was Otieno, senior architect, recently relocated from Kisumu to Nairobi to open his own firm. He didn't approach her, not immediately. He just watched, quietly, the way a man watches a painting he can't name, but can't look away from. Their eyes met when she reached for the same lemon tart he was eyeing. "You can take it," he said, "but only if you agree it looks better than it tastes." Wanjira smirked. A man with opinions on pastry? Intriguing. "An architect with taste," he said, raising his glass. They didn't stop talking until the lights dimmed and the band began packing up. Otieno was unlike any man Wanjira had dated. He listened more than he spoke. He wore his wealth lightly. No flashy watches, no loud declarations, just subtle confidence and shoes that never creaked. He drove a black Jaguar but didn't mention it until she asked. When they dined, he let her order first, always. One night, after dinner at a Japanese bistro, he looked at her across the candlelit table. "You are fire," he said, "and fire melts men who've lived in too much cold." She laughed, genuinely, maybe for the first time in months. They moved fast. By the second month, he had a drawer in her apartment. By the third, a ring on her finger. The proposal was simple. On the rooftop where they met, just the two of them and a violinist she didn't know he'd hired. She screamed, she cried, she posted, "PR Queen." Finally wiped up, trended on Nairobi Twitter. The wedding plans began the next day. It would be extravagant, of course, elegant. Every detail curated, the floral arrangements flown in from South Africa, the dress designed by a Ghanaian fashion house, the guest list trimmed to Nairobi's elite. But one thing was non-negotiable. No children, not one, not even her own niece and nephew. "I want champagne toasts, not apple juice stains," she told the planner. "I want adult conversations, not lullabies." Even the flower girls were replaced with adult bridesmaids holding baskets of golden petals. Mangi was stunned. You're not inviting Baraka and Bilha? They're 5, Mangi. This is not kindergarten graduation. They're your blood. And this is my moment. He didn't argue. He just nodded once, slowly. Later that night, Achieng called. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. You will need them one day, Wanjira. Wanjira rolled her eyes. Please, Achieng, not another prophecy. No prophecy, Achieng replied. Just life. The wedding was, by all accounts, a spectacle, held at an exclusive venue in Karen, with glass chandeliers swaying under the open tent and petals floating in the pool. Otieno looked like royalty in his cream suit, and Wanjira shimmered in silver and white. Guests whispered in admiration and mild confusion, not a single child in sight. Some called it bold, some called it cold. Wanjira called it perfect. As the officiant said, "You may now kiss the bride." The sun dipped behind the acacia trees, and she felt for a fleeting moment immortal. Marriage was smooth at first. They traveled, dined out, made love often, and talked late into the night. Otieno was thoughtful, gentle. He left notes on mirrors and ran her bubble baths after long days. But slowly he began to change, not in anger, but in quiet. He started asking questions. So, "What do you think about kids?" Wanjira would laugh. "We have time. Let's enjoy this honeymoon phase." I know. But life is short. She changed the subject. He didn't press, not at first. But the questions returned. At dinner, in the car, late at night, in the hush between their breathing. One evening, as she massaged lotion into her arms, he asked again, "Are you open to it?" She looked at him in the mirror. "You knew who I was when you married me." "I did," he said. "But people grow, change." "Well, I haven't." He nodded, but the look in his eyes said otherwise. What Otieno didn't know was that Wanjira had already stopped using protection months earlier. She wasn't against the idea entirely. She just didn't want to feel pressured. It had to be on her terms. But as months passed and nothing happened, her confidence cracked. First, she blamed stress, then diet, then travel. Finally, she went to a gynecologist. "You're perfectly healthy," the doctor said. "Fertile. Just give it time." Otieno got tested too. Sperm count, excellent. So why then did every month bring the same red disappointment? She didn't cry. Not at first. She just folded the test strip, flushed it, and made more tea. But it started to gnaw at her. She began following maternity influencers, liked videos of women folding baby clothes, started Googling ovulation hacks at midnight. In private, silently, she never told Otieno how much she had begun to want it. Not just the child, but the identity, the belonging, the bond. But the memories haunted her. Her own words, cruel and careless, played like echoes. Children are curses in diapers. This house smells like a daycare built in hell. Motherhood is for the desperate. Each phrase hit harder now. One morning, as she stood in her designer kitchen, a commercial came on, a baby laughing as his mother kissed his feet. Wanjira's lip trembled. She switched the TV off. Later that evening, she pulled a blanket from the linen closet and caught a whiff of baby powder. Faint, probably from when Baraka visited. Her throat tightened. She sat on the couch, clutched the fabric, and whispered, "God, just one. Just one baby. I swear I'll never say those things again." The room stayed silent, as if waiting to see if she meant it. Otieno grew more distant. He still came home, still kissed her cheek, but the light was dimmer. One night, as they sat in silence watching a movie neither of them cared about, he said, without turning to her, "I want to be a father." She froze. He paused the film. "I need to be one." "I'm trying," she said almost too quickly. He turned to her. "Are you?" Her voice dropped. Yes. Then let's go all in. Try properly. Together. She nodded, but something inside her feared it was already too late. Weeks passed. Every test was negative. Each one chipped away at her. Otieno began coming home later, traveling more, sleeping sooner. One night, he didn't kiss her goodnight. She stared at the ceiling long after his breathing evened out. On their first anniversary, Wanjira planned a private dinner, candlelight. Otieno's favorite wine, his favorite dish, tilapia with ugali like his mother used to make. He came home late, a gift bag in hand. She smiled. He handed her a box. Inside, a baby onesie, tiny, white, with gold lettering. Daddy's future MVP. Wanjira's smile faltered. She hadn't missed her period that month, but that morning, she had taken the test. Negative. Again. She held the onesie in shaking hands. Otieno watched her, and for the first time, saw the truth in her eyes. You knew? She nodded. He stood slowly, walked to the bedroom, didn't say another word. That night, Wanjira sat alone at the table, 2 plates untouched, 1 candle flickering, and for the first time since the wedding, her house felt small. Not empty, but shrinking. Space once too elegant for children now felt too sterile for life. She looked down at the onesie in her lap, held it close. The silence had changed. It was no longer the comforting quiet of scented candles and soft music. Now it echoed. It bounced off the walls of Wanjira's apartment like something alive, mocking her with every breath she took. She didn't tell Otieno. Not about the 6th negative test, not about the strange ache she felt at dawn, not about the herbs she'd started boiling in secret, nor the fertility teas she ordered online under a fake name. She couldn't bring herself to say the words. Something feels broken, because all the doctors had said she was fine, perfectly healthy, and Otieno's tests also perfect. So where was the baby? Where was the reward for all her freedom? For all the times she mocked the crying toddler in the restaurant, or rolled her eyes at mothers struggling with strollers on sidewalks? Where was her miracle? She began tracking everything. Her ovulation was now a full-time job. Apps, charts, temperatures. She'd lie awake at night counting days on her fingers like a schoolgirl cramming for exams. She became obsessed with signals from her body. Was that twinge a good sign? Were sore breasts a clue or just another false alarm? Each month ended the same. A single red dot on white cotton, and then shame. Otieno noticed. Not the calendar in her phone, not the secret box of test strips she hid behind the cereal, but her. Her body, once playful and alive, now tense and tight. Her smile, once disarming, now forced and stretched too thin. Her conversations, once electric, now mechanical. "Are you okay?" he asked one evening, as she stared into her untouched tea. "Just tired," she said. "Tired of what?" She blinked. "Work." He nodded but didn't press. He had stopped pressing, and that somehow hurt more. He started working later, staying at the office longer. His jokes dried up. His texts became shorter. His voice over dinner was polite, neutral. She watched him drift, like steam from a mug, visible, then gone. One night she waited up for him, dressed in the silk robe he liked, candles lit, wine breathing on the table. He came home, saw her, paused. "You look nice," he said, but his voice didn't match the words. She tried to kiss him. He kissed back, but his hands stayed by his side. The next morning, she opened her messages to find a flood of baby shower invites. Former friends, distant cousins, workmates she barely spoke to, all of them glowing, all of them expecting. She scrolled past them like war photos, but one stopped her cold. Mutoni, the same friend she had blocked a year ago. She had tagged Wanjira in an old photo. University days. back when they both wore heels too high and dreams too loud. In the caption, "Who knew we'd grow into such different women? Life teaches us all." The post wasn't even angry, just honest. Wanjira didn't unblock her, but she stared at the photo for a long, long time. At the office, she could no longer fake it. Her sarcasm dulled. Her pitches lost their punch. She found herself zoning out. During meetings, her mind drifting to baby names she would never say aloud, lullabies she never learned, and the ghost of a daughter she'd never held. One afternoon, during a brainstorm session, Asha mentioned maternity leave in passing. Wanjira flinched. Asha noticed but said nothing. That night, Wanjira cried in the shower until her skin wrinkled and her voice cracked. The memories began returning like thieves. The night she screamed at Baraka for peeing on the floor. The moment she hissed when Bilha touched her throw pillow. The time she laughed at Achieng and said, "You don't know anything. All you do is breathe and breastfeed." Each memory was a blade, and she felt every one. One morning, she found herself in a supermarket aisle staring at baby wipes. She picked up a pack, sniffed it. Vanilla and lavender. Something inside her caved. She dropped the pack and walked out, abandoning her cart. She didn't even realize she was crying until a guard offered her a tissue at the door. Otieno came home. Late again that week, she waited for him. "You're drifting," she said. He looked tired. "So are you. Do you still want this? Us?" He shrugged. "What is this? A house that feels like a waiting room? That's not fair. Neither is living like we're mourning someone who hasn't died." She turned away. He didn't follow. That night, she sat in bed and whispered into the dark. "God, please. Just one baby. I'll love them. I'll protect them. I'll never mock again." But the room stayed quiet, like it didn't believe her. By their second anniversary, she had stopped hoping out loud, stopped praying at all. She just moved through the days like a ghost, cleaned obsessively, rearranged furniture, deleted old posts on Instagram. She even found an old photo of Baraka and Bilha tucked between her files. They were younger then, all cheeks and giggles. She stared at it, then slid it into the corner of her mirror. For once, she didn't look away. She thought about calling Mangi, about apologizing, about showing up at their door and saying, "You were right." But she couldn't. Pride still clung to her ribs like glue, so she stayed in her silence. And the silence answered back. One afternoon, she tried to cook. Tilapia and sukuma wiki, Otieno's favorite. She wanted to make a gesture. He came home, saw the table, blinked. "You cooked?" "I tried." He sat down, took a bite, chewed slowly. "It's good." They ate quietly. Then he stood. "Thank you," he said, but his eyes didn't smile, and she knew deep down he was already walking away. That night she dreamt of a child, a little girl with twist braids, holding her hand and laughing. She woke up sobbing, reaching for something that wasn't there, and cried. It was Otieno who first brought up the idea. They were having dinner in silence, again. The space between them had grown so wide it might as well have been an ocean. Wanjira had stopped trying to cross it. "I spoke to someone," he said, finally breaking the quiet. "A lawyer who specializes in adoption." Wanjira looked up. "You did?" He nodded, eyes on his food. "There's a registered orphanage in Nakuru. They accept private applications." She stared at him, words caught in her throat. Otieno continued. "We could go. See how it feels." She hesitated, and then, slowly, nodded. The drive to Nakuru was long, wrapped in a heavy quiet. Wanjira watched the trees blur past the window. Otieno drove with both hands on the wheel, eyes forward, lips pressed into a line. The orphanage sat on a quiet hillside, a compound surrounded by faded blue walls and jacaranda trees. Children's laughter drifted faintly from somewhere inside. Woman in a sunflower-patterned dress came to greet them. "Karibuni," she said warmly. "You must be Mr. and Mrs. Otieno." She introduced herself as Matron Miriam and led them inside. There were murals on the walls, handprints, flowers, and stick-figure families. A little boy ran past them with a toy car. A girl followed close behind, giggling. Wanjira smiled. This would be fine. It had to be. They entered a playroom where 5 toddlers were building towers with plastic blocks. Matron Miriam whispered something to one of the caretakers and nodded to Wanjira. "Feel free to engage. They love visitors." Wanjira stepped forward, crouched near a small boy playing alone by the corner. "Hi, sweetheart," she said gently. "What's your name?" The boy looked up at her for a brief second, then screamed, a loud, terrified scream. He dropped his toy and ran to the opposite corner, knocking over another child in his panic. Wanjira froze. Matron Miriam stepped in quickly. "It's okay. He's shy. Let's try another." They moved to another group. Wanjira tried again. "Hi there," she said to a little girl stacking cups. "Can I play too?" The girl looked up at her, narrowed her eyes, and without a word, stood up and walked away. The rejection hit her like a slap. Otieno was watching closely now, arms folded across his chest. Wanjira moved to a final child, a girl with tight braids and a floral dress. She was playing with a cloth doll. Wanjira sat beside her, heart pounding. "That's a beautiful doll," she said, smiling. The girl didn't look up. She clutched the doll tighter. Then, in a whisper barely louder than breath, she said, "I don't like you." Wanjira stood up slowly. Her hands trembled. She turned to Matron Miriam. "Is this normal?" she asked. The matron didn't look. Surprised, her voice was kind but firm. "Children are like animals," she said. "They sense energy, even the ones who can't speak yet. They know." "Know what?" Wanjira asked. The matron held her gaze. "What your eyes won't admit." Wanjira blinked, but her vision had already blurred. The drive back to Nairobi was the longest silence of Wanjira's life. Otieno didn't say a word. When they got home, she went straight to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, and sat on the floor. Water dripped steadily into the sink, but all she could hear was that child's voice. "I don't like you." She didn't cry. Not yet. That came the next morning. When she woke, Otieno was gone. No kiss, no text, just a note on the dining table. "Wanjira, I can't do this anymore. I married you for love, but love without growth becomes pain. I want to be a father. I need to be. Maybe the door will open for me somewhere else. I hope peace finds you." Otieno. Her knees buckled. She slid to the floor. And there, under the cold weight of his absence, she broke. For 3 days, she didn't leave the apartment, didn't shower, didn't eat. She stared at her reflection, expecting it to vanish, but it didn't. It just looked back, tired, brittle, haunted. Her phone rang. Mangi. She let it ring out. Later, a text came through. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. Because no, she wasn't. Not remotely. On the 4th day, she opened a notebook and began to write, "Maybe I never loved children. Maybe I loved the idea of being needed, the applause, the status of motherhood, but not the sacrifice, not the noise, not the patience." She stared at those words, then underlined the last sentence. Not the patience. Her world shrank. She stopped attending work events, stopped posting. Even her followers noticed. One commented, "Where's the queen of clapbacks? No baby jokes this week?" She blocked them because it wasn't funny anymore. Not when she would have given anything to be the woman she used to mock. One evening, she walked past her old guest room, the one where Otieno had started storing baby books and soft blankets. She opened the closet. Inside, tucked in a drawer, was the onesie he had given her on their anniversary. Daddy's future MVP, she pressed it to her chest and sank to the floor and cried so hard her ribs hurt. She remembered the times she'd laughed at crying mothers in public, called children sticky furniture, rolled her eyes at Instagram posts about diaper rashes. Now, even sticky furniture would have been a blessing. Weeks passed. She began going on long walks, not to escape, but to feel something. One afternoon, in Karura Forest, she passed a school trip. Children in uniforms laughed and pointed at butterflies. One little girl with braids bumped into her. Wanjira reached out instinctively, but as her hand touched the girl's arm, the child shrieked. "Don't touch me! Don't touch me!" A teacher rushed over, apologizing. "She's just nervous with strangers," the teacher explained, guiding the girl away. Wanjira stood still, hands suspended in the air. None of the children looked back at her, not one. That night, she sat on the bathroom floor staring at her hands. "They feel it," she whispered. "They know." And then she broke again. The next morning, she logged into the adoption agency's site. She didn't fill out the form. She just stared at the welcome message. Every child deserves love. She wasn't sure she had any left to give. Later that week, she received a letter. It was from Achieng. Simple. Handwritten. "Dear Wanjira, I'm not angry anymore. Baraka and Bilha are doing well. They know you tried. And if one day you want to try again, we'll be here. It's never too late to love. Achieng." Wanjira wept silently, not because of the words, but because she didn't feel worthy of them. She placed the letter on her nightstand. Next to it, the baby wipes she once dropped in fear. The scent didn't burn anymore. It made her cry, but it didn't burn. 1 year passed, not suddenly, not softly, just slowly, like a grain of sand tumbling through a cracked hourglass. There were no dramatic events, no unexpected twists, just the quiet erosion of a life that once glittered with curated freedom. Wanjira barely noticed when the seasons changed. The jasmine on her balcony bloomed and wilted twice. Rain tapped her windows for weeks, then stopped. The sun returned, but it didn't feel warm anymore. Her calendar collected dust. The only things she marked now were garbage days and therapy appointments. Yes, therapy. She had started 6 months ago, after waking up in the middle of the night with the sheets wrapped around her like a straitjacket. Her scream had startled even herself. The next morning, she'd Googled, "When do you know you need help?" The top result had read, "When your pain becomes the only voice you hear." She booked the session immediately. Her therapist was a middle-aged woman named Ruth with quiet eyes and a notepad that rarely moved. She didn't offer platitudes, didn't rush Wanjira toward healing. She just listened. Sometimes that's all Wanjira could manage. Silence, broken only by her own breathing. "Tell me about the silence," Ruth had asked once. Wanjira thought for a long time. "It's not emptiness," she finally said. "It's judgment. Like the walls remember what I said before." "What did you say before?" Wanjira stared at the ceiling. "Things I can't take back." Her friends, the ones she used to brunch with, were now strangers. Their group chat was still active, but she never typed a word. The conversations had changed. "Nanny didn't show up. I'm losing my mind. My son won't stop biting people. Can we recommend sleep training books?" Wanjira read every message like a foreigner reading an unfamiliar language. Once, she typed, "He'll grow out of it," then deleted it. She had nothing to offer. She wasn't one of them, not yet, maybe never. Social media felt like a haunted house now. Every scroll revealed milestones, first steps, first teeth, baby announcements wrapped in tiny shoes and soft light. Wanjira didn't laugh anymore. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't even feel bitter. She just felt outside, like someone watching a warm bonfire from behind a frozen window pane. One Saturday morning, as she returned from the grocery store, she found an envelope under her door. It was handwritten, no stamp. No address. Her hands trembled as she opened it. The handwriting was unmistakable. Achieng. Dear Wanjira, I hope this letter finds you with some light in your heart. I wanted you to know we are well. Baraka lost his front tooth last week. He tried to put it under his pillow for the tooth fairy, but then changed his mind and gave it to me instead. He said, Mommy will keep it safe. Bilha is drawing now. She likes birds and people with very long legs. She still remembers you. We talk about you sometimes. I tell them, Auntie Wanjira is learning how to love in a new way. I hope that's true. It's never too late to love. With peace, Achieng. Wanjira read the letter 3 times. By the end, her tears had soaked the page. She didn't wipe them away. That night, she sat at her balcony and watched the children in the compound playground. A boy fell. His mother ran, picked him up, kissed his bruised knee. He said, Thank you, Mommy, between sniffles. Wanjira turned away, but something inside her stirred. Not envy, not pain, hope, small, fragile, but alive. The next day, she returned to therapy, with something new in her voice. I got a letter, she said. Ruth raised an eyebrow. From whom? My sister-in-law, Achieng. Ruth waited. Wanjira swallowed. It didn't hurt me, not like I thought it would. What did it do? She smiled faintly. It reminded me that I'm still human. The following week, she did something bold. She walked into a bookstore, found the parenting aisle, picked up a book titled Raising Humans with Grace. She paid in cash, stuffed it into her bag, and left quickly, as if someone might catch her committing a crime. But she read it, cover to cover, twice. She started cooking again, simple meals, stopped rearranging furniture obsessively, even called her cousin, whom she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Little things. But to her, they were earthquakes. And one quiet Wednesday morning, while making tea, she said the words out loud. I want to try again. She didn't know what try meant yet, but it was a beginning. At therapy, she unpacked her old beliefs like a suitcase left too long in a dark room. I didn't hate children, she admitted. Ruth waited. I just didn't understand them. She exhaled sharply. And I was scared. Of what? Of being needed. Ruth nodded slowly. And now? Wanjira looked down at her hands. Now I wish someone needed me. She wrote a message to Mangi, didn't send it, then rewrote it. Still, didn't send. She saved it in her notes, but the act of writing felt like motion. Then, one day, without meaning to, she smiled at a child in the elevator, a little girl holding a balloon. The girl smiled back. Nothing more. But it was enough to send Wanjira upstairs with her heart beating faster than it had in months. Later that night, she pulled out Achieng's letter again and wrote one of her own. Dear Achieng, thank you. I don't deserve your kindness, but I want to earn it. I'm trying. I hope one day I can come and say that to Baraka and Bilha in person, if they'll still have me. With hope, Wanjira. She sealed it, walked to the post box at the corner, and mailed it with both hands, as if she were letting go of something heavy. As she walked back home, the wind picked up, leaves danced along the sidewalk, and Wanjira, for the first time, in what felt like forever, didn't feel like an outsider watching the world live. She felt like someone still learning how to live again. It had been over a year since Wanjira last set foot in an orphanage. This time, Everything felt different. No silk blouse, no mascara, no curated confidence. She wore jeans, a cotton blouse, and shoes that could handle playground dust. Her hair was tied back simply, her face bare. The woman who walked through the orphanage gates in Nairobi wasn't chasing an image. She was chasing something real. The matron greeted her at the gate with a surprised but kind smile. "Welcome back," she said. "You've changed." Wanjira nodded. "I'm here to try, not to impress." The matron led her through the courtyard, where children played under a mango tree. Laughter and shrieks of joy filled the air. But the moment Wanjira stepped forward, something shifted. A small boy who had been dribbling a ball paused, looked at her, and stepped away. A toddler sitting nearby scooted back when she knelt. It wasn't fear, not exactly. It was hesitation, uncertainty, a deep, wordless caution that pierced straight through her. She spent the afternoon trying, smiling gently, reading aloud, offering toys. She even helped serve porridge during snack time, kneeling to clean up spilled cups and crumbs. But the children kept their distance. Some watched her, a few whispered. Most avoided her touch. By the end of the day, Wanjira sat on a bench under the jacaranda tree, defeated. The matron came and sat beside her, hands folded in her lap. "They still feel something," Wanjira said quietly. "They do," the matron replied. "Children can't explain energy, but they live inside it. They know when a heart is only halfway open. I want to be different," Wanjira said. The matron nodded. "Then don't just want a child. Be a home. They will know the difference." Wanjira didn't respond. She just stared out at the playground, where one girl twirled in the sun, giggling, so free, so unreachable. That night, Wanjira didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat at her window with a warm cup of tea and asked herself the question that had haunted her for months. What do I want? Not the answer she rehearsed for social media. Not the one she built for Otieno. Not even the one she wrote in her journal. What do I want? And softly, honestly, the answer came. To give, not to get. The next morning, she packed a small bag. Inside, a few gifts, none expensive, crayons, stickers, a simple book of African bedtime stories. Then she pulled out her phone and typed a message. "Mangi, can I visit this weekend? If it's okay with Achieng. And the kids," the reply came that evening. "Come, we'll be here." We'd like that. Saturday arrived with clear skies and shy hope. She took a cab to their estate, heart pounding the closer they got. Everything looked familiar, but smaller somehow. Softer. She stood at the front door for a full minute before knocking. The door swung open. Baraka stood there, taller than she remembered, a little gap in his front teeth, still the same curious eyes. He blinked. "Auntie?" Before she could answer, he ran forward and threw his arms around her waist. "Tight! Whole!" Wanjira gasped. And then, for the first time in years, she let herself cry where someone could see. Bilha came next, shy, standing just behind her brother. Then slowly, like a flower uncoiling in the sun, she smiled and ran forward too. "We missed you," she squealed. Wanjira dropped to her knees and held them both, not like someone seeking forgiveness, but like someone who finally understood love. Inside, the house was exactly as she remembered. The smell of fried onions, a vase of flowers half wilted. On the dining table, tiny socks on the floor, chaos and comfort woven into every corner. Achieng stood by the kitchen door, her hands wiping on a towel. Her smile was calm. "Open. You came," she said. "I didn't know if I could," Wanjira admitted. "I was afraid." "Love is always worth the risk," Achieng said gently. They hugged, not tightly, but sincerely. and something in Wanjira's chest clicked back into place. The day passed like a soft dream. They ate chapati and stew. Wanjira helped Baraka build a Lego spaceship and listened to Bilha explain why giraffes were her favorite animal. Because they can see everything, even what people try to hide. At one point, Bilha climbed into her lap without asking, and Wanjira didn't flinch. She just held her, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Later that evening, as they prepared tea, Mangi pulled her aside. "They were worried, you." "No, I would be too," she said. "You've changed?" "I'm still changing," Wanjira replied. He smiled. "That's enough." As the sun set, she stood by the window watching the kids chase each other in the yard. A Chieng came up beside her. "No one expects perfection, Wanjira," she said. "Only presence." Wanjira nodded. "I think," she whispered, "this is the first time I've ever felt real." That night, before leaving, Baraka handed her a piece of folded paper. "A drawing," he said proudly. She opened it in the car. 3 stick figures, a tall one with long earrings, 2 smaller ones holding her hands. Underneath, in crooked writing, "Auntie came home." Wanjira clutched the paper to her chest, and as the car pulled away from the house, she didn't feel like she was leaving something behind. She felt like she was carrying it forward. The first time Wanjira packed a lunchbox, she nearly cried. Not from frustration, but from the quiet joy of it. Slicing small mango cubes, sealing a juice box, writing, "Have a brave day," on a post-it note in her best handwriting. It was for Bilha, who upon finding the note at school, showed it to everyone. Even her teacher. "Auntie wrote this," she said proudly, "because she thinks I'm brave." Wanjira hadn't moved back in with Mangi, but she might as well have. Nearly every evening she was there, not hovering, not trying to make up for lost time with grand gestures. Just showing up. She helped with homework, read stories, listened. She sat through tantrums, helped clean up spilled porridge, and once, when Baraka vomited on her favorite scarf, she didn't scream. She just wiped his mouth, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "It's okay. Everyone makes messes." He looked at her, confused, then smiled. Chieng, watching from the kitchen, said nothing, but her eyes said everything. One afternoon, as they folded laundry together, she passed Wanjira a pair of tiny socks and said, "You're not trying to replace anyone, and that's why it's working." Wanjira didn't respond right away. She just nodded and kept folding. On weekends, she took the kids to the park. At first, she worried other mothers would recognize her. Maybe someone who'd once seen her infamous posts. Maybe a mother she'd judged at a supermarket or party. But no one treated her with suspicion, and slowly, she stopped treating herself that way too. She learned how to carry a toddler on her, hip without hurting her back. How to distract Baraka from a meltdown by making up silly songs. How to braid Bilha's hair, badly at first, then better. One Sunday afternoon, after a long day at Uhuru Park, Bilha fell asleep on Wanjira's lap in the car. Wanjira didn't dare move. She just sat there, still, with Bilha's warm breath against her arm. And in that stillness, something sacred bloomed. Her old life didn't disappear. She still worked part-time, still did the occasional PR consultation, still posted photos of sunrises and cappuccinos, but the edge in her captions was gone. The irony, the mockery, gone. In its place were softer words, wiser ones. The most important rooms don't have chandeliers. They have toys on the floor and hand-drawn pictures taped to the fridge. Some days I wear perfume, some days I wear spit-up. Both are proof that I'm showing up. She lost followers, but the ones who stayed, they stayed for the truth. Mangi was the first to say it out loud. They were sitting outside one evening watching the kids ride bikes down the compound path. You're different. Wanjira sipped her tea. I know. Not polished, different. Heart different. She smiled. It took me too long. He shook his head. It took exactly the time it needed. They sat in silence after that, not needing to fill it, because sometimes growth sounds like nothing at all. Her relationship with Otieno was never repaired. They hadn't spoken since he left. One afternoon, she saw a photo of him online, smiling, with a woman and a newborn baby wrapped in blue. She didn't cry. She didn't curse the sky. She just whispered, "I hope you got what you needed." Then turned her phone off and went to help Bilha tie her shoelaces. Achieng started teaching her how to cook more family meals, not the fine dining stuff Wanjira used to post. Real food, matoke chapati from scratch, githeri that simmers for hours. They talked as they cooked. Not about regrets, but about small things. How to get stains out of school uniforms. Which mangoes were sweetest. The best way to wrap leftovers so they didn't smell up the fridge. One day, Achieng burned her hand slightly and hissed, "Wanjira!" Rushed to get a cold compress. As she pressed it gently to Achieng's hand, Achieng smiled. "You're not who you were." "No," Wanjira said. "I'm not." There were still hard days. Days when Bilha cried for no reason. Days when Baraka refused to eat anything but bananas. Days when the loneliness still knocked on Wanjira's door and whispered, "You failed." But now, she knew how to answer, not with denial, but with truth. "Yes, I failed, but I'm still here." One evening, after putting the kids to bed, she sat in the living room flipping through an old notebook, the one she used to write in during her worst days. She found the page where she once scribbled, "Maybe I never loved children. Maybe I loved the idea of being needed." She stared at it for a long time, then picked up a pen, and underneath it, she wrote, "But I learned to love without needing to be needed. I learned to give, not to fix. I learned that love is not performance, it's presence." Months passed. The house stayed messy. The fridge stayed full. Her heart, once hollow, now had fingerprints and crayon stains all over it, and she was okay with that. One Saturday, she took the kids to visit her parents' grave in Nyahururu. Mangi came, Achieng too. They brought flowers. The children carried small stones to leave by the headstones. As they stood in the late afternoon sun, Wanjira knelt and whispered, "Mom, Dad, I was lost, but I found my way back through the little ones you gave us." She looked over at Baraka, and Bilha chasing butterflies between graves. "They saved me. You'd be proud of them, and I hope one day you'd be proud of me too." On the way home, Bilha leaned over in the car and whispered, "Auntie?" "Yes, sweet girl? You're like a second mommy now." Wanjira smiled. "I don't have to be your mommy, just your safe place." Bilha nodded. "I like safe places." That night, Wanjira stood on her balcony and looked up at the stars. She remembered every step that had brought her here. The pride, the poison, the fall, the silence, the shame, the slow return. Forgiveness didn't erase the past, it made peace with it. And in that peace, something new could grow. Inside, the house stirred. A soft cry, then a giggle, then silence again. Wanjira walked back in, barefoot, the air warm against her skin. She passed the fridge, now decorated with drawings, spelling tests, and a sticky note that read, "We love you, Auntie." She placed her hand over it, breathed deep, and smiled, because this was not the life she once chased. It was better. It was true. It was hers. If you watched until the end, comment the word redemption, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with your family and friends.